America is a nation of immigrants, and it owes its success to them. The strength and growth of the country were built by people who came from every corner of the world. Generations of newcomers brought ideas, traditions, and skills that made America unique. But there is another side to this story that is hard to ignore. In many areas, illegal immigration fuels rising homelessness and street encampments. Public spaces become dirty and unsafe, and crime rates climb while police departments stop responding to petty theft and street assaults. But what if we told you there are 10 states that see this injustice and fight against it? These are states that put the safety and well-being of their citizens first. They are passing strict laws, expanding cooperation with federal immigration authorities, and closing the loopholes that allow illegal immigration to flourish. In this video, we will go through 10 states where illegal immigrants will face the toughest challenges in 2025. But before we start, here's a little question to entertain you. What is the name of the new toughest prison for illegal migrants? A. San Quentin. B. Alligator Alcatraz. C. Angola Prison. D. Attica. Share your opinion in the comments and patiently watch this video till the end to find out the truth. Number 10. South Carolina. In the latest Immigrant Legal Resource Center ranking, South Carolina scored 2.65 out of 5. On this scale, 1 means the strictest immigration laws and 5 means the most protective. The state earned this position for its strong cooperation with federal immigration authorities, rapid data sharing between local police and immigration agents, and the ability to check immigration status during stops and arrests. South Carolina was not always a key player in immigration enforcement. For years, the focus was on tourism, manufacturing, and economic growth. That changed in the late 2000s as concerns grew about crime, drug activity, and the rising number of people living in the state without legal status. In 2011, lawmakers passed an Arizona-style immigration law, officially SB 20. It allowed police to verify immigration status during certain stops or arrests. Federal courts later struck down some parts, but enough remained to set the state on a more hardline path. In 2025, with the second Trump administration prioritizing aggressive enforcement, South Carolina expanded these efforts. More counties formalized cooperation agreements with immigration agencies. Local jails implemented faster reporting systems to flag suspected undocumented immigrants within hours. Police received additional training to integrate immigration checks into daily operations without slowing other duties. Undocumented immigrants here also face strict limits on public assistance. Emergency medical care is available to everyone, but full Medicaid is off limits to those without legal status. Cash benefits, food aid, and most state programs are restricted to citizens, refugees, or legal residents who meet strict requirements. Many legal immigrants must wait years or show a long work history before qualifying. This leaves undocumented residents with little support beyond urgent hospital care. Legal challenges still influence policy. Courts blocked parts of the 2011 law, including provisions that would have allowed detention based solely on suspected illegal presence. Yet the core powers to check immigration status during enforcement remain intact. Supporters claim these measures reduce repeat offenses, protect public resources, and deter criminals from settling in the state. Critics warn they create fear even among those with legal status, discouraging cooperation with law enforcement. How long have you lived in South Carolina, and have you noticed more immigration checks in everyday policing? Share your experiences in the comments and tell us how you think these policies are shaping life in the state. Before we continue, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. And now, let's dive in. Number 9. Arizona. Arizona scored 2.65 in the Immigrant Legal Resource Center ranking, reflecting its long-standing reputation for aggressive enforcement and close cooperation between local and federal immigration authorities. The state is known for policies that integrate immigration checks into everyday policing and a legal history that set a national example for strict state-level measures. That reputation was cemented in 2010 with the passage of SB 1070, widely referred to as the Show Me Your Papers law. It allowed police to verify the immigration status of anyone they suspected of being in the country illegally during lawful stops. The U.S. Supreme Court struck down some provisions, such as making it a crime to seek work without authorization, but left others intact, including the requirement to check immigration status under certain conditions. These surviving elements have kept Arizona on a hardline path for more than a decade. Local law enforcement agencies have built strong relationships with immigration and customs enforcement, In many counties, sheriffs coordinate with federal officers to transfer individuals directly from local jails into immigration custody. In 2025, the second Trump administration's emphasis on immigration enforcement brought new proposals in the Arizona legislature. Several counties increased the number of officers trained to assist in federal immigration cases, and coordination with ICE intensified. While the governor has blocked some of the most controversial bills, the overall direction remains toward deeper cooperation with federal authorities. For undocumented immigrants, Arizona offers very limited public assistance. Emergency medical care is available to all, but Medicaid, food assistance, and most state aid are restricted to citizens and qualified legal residents. Many legal immigrants must wait 5 years before becoming eligible for Medicaid or CHIP. State law also limits access to certain locally funded services, leaving most undocumented residents reliant solely on urgent hospital care. The legal framework in Arizona is both restrictive and resilient. Even after major court rulings, the authority for officers to verify immigration status during lawful stops remains. Supporters claim this discourages illegal settlement and enhances public safety. Critics argue it fosters racial profiling, increases fear in immigrant neighborhoods, and undermines trust in law enforcement. How long have you lived in Arizona, and have you seen immigration enforcement become more visible in your community? Share your thoughts in the comments. Our team needs your help. Subscribe to our channel to help more people learn the truth about current events. And now, we move on. Number 8. Georgia. Georgia scored 2.55 in the Immigrant Legal Resource Center ranking, placing it among the states with some of the toughest immigration enforcement measures in the country. For years, Georgia maintained steady cooperation with federal agencies, but the pace intensified in 2024 with the passage of House Bill 1105. This law requires police to check the immigration status of suspects in certain criminal cases and share that information with federal authorities. It also obliges sheriffs to hold detainees for immigration pickup when requested by federal officers. Implementation has been swift. Many county jails have upgraded their booking systems to flag individuals who may be in the country illegally. Officers receive guidance on how to handle cases involving foreign-born suspects, including faster communication with immigration and customs enforcement. For undocumented immigrants, this means the risk of being detected is significantly higher, even when facing charges unrelated to immigration. In 2025, with the federal government pushing for broader cooperation, Georgia's law enforcement agencies deepened their participation in immigration operations. More counties began responding to federal detainer requests, and state officials promoted the idea that active enforcement protects communities from crime and fraud. Supporters of the measures argue they reduce repeat offenses and send a clear signal that Georgia will not serve as a safe haven for those who break immigration laws. Public benefits for undocumented immigrants in Georgia are extremely limited. Emergency medical care is available to all, but Medicaid and most state assistance programs are off-limits without legal status. Legal immigrants often face a 5-year wait before becoming eligible for programs like Medicaid or the Children's Health Insurance Program. State law also limits access to in-state tuition for higher education, adding another barrier for those without full legal status. Legal challenges to Georgia's approach have so far failed to overturn its core enforcement provisions. Courts have allowed the state to require status checks in certain circumstances and to maintain cooperation agreements with federal agencies. Critics warn that these policies create fear within immigrant communities, discouraging victims and witnesses from coming forward. They also raise concerns about racial profiling and the impact on families where members have mixed immigration statuses. How long have you lived in Georgia, and have you noticed changes in how immigration laws are enforced in your area? Share your views in the comments. Now please take a moment to hit that like button. It's a small action, but it helps YouTube's algorithm promote our videos to a wider audience. Number 7. Tennessee. Tennessee scored 2.55 in the Immigrant Legal Resource Center ranking, reflecting a firm commitment to enforcing immigration laws at the state and local level. For years, Tennessee's laws have prevented cities and counties from adopting any measures that could limit cooperation with federal agents. This anti-sanctuary stance hardened even more in 2025, when state lawmakers approved a new enforcement package aimed at increasing oversight of local governments. The legislation threatens penalties for officials who attempt to shield undocumented immigrants from immigration enforcement and expands the situations in which law enforcement can inquire about a person's immigration status. A significant part of the 2025 changes involves requiring more detailed reporting from local agencies on how they respond to federal detainer requests. Sheriffs must now certify that they comply with all immigration holds issued by Immigration and Customs Enforcement. The state also authorized additional training for local police to recognize and report suspected violations of immigration law, making enforcement a routine part of public safety operations. For undocumented immigrants, the legal environment in Tennessee offers almost no access to public benefits. Emergency medical care is available regardless of status, but Medicaid, food assistance, and most state programs are restricted to citizens and certain categories of legal residents. Legal immigrants often face the standard 5-year wait before becoming eligible for Medicaid or the Children's Health Insurance Program. State law also blocks access to in-state tuition for undocumented students, limiting higher education opportunities. Supporters of Tennessee's approach argue that strict enforcement protects communities, discourages illegal settlement, and ensures that tax-funded benefits go to those who are legally present. They also claim it reduces the likelihood of repeat offenses by individuals who would otherwise remain in the state without legal status. Critics counter that the policies can harm public safety by making immigrant communities less likely to cooperate with police. Advocacy groups warn of the risk of racial profiling and the impact on families where members have different immigration statuses. Legal challenges have so far failed to overturn the state's core anti-sanctuary laws, allowing them to remain a central part of Tennessee's strategy. Tennessee's message is clear. Local authorities are expected to fully align with federal immigration enforcement efforts, and public benefits are reserved for those who meet strict legal criteria. For undocumented immigrants, this makes the state a difficult place to settle or remain for the long term. How long have you lived in Tennessee, and have you noticed more active immigration enforcement in your community? Share your experiences in the comments. Share this video on X and Facebook to help us grow. Every share counts. Number 6. Louisiana. Louisiana scored 2.45 in the Immigrant Legal Resource Center ranking, placing it among the states with some of the most restrictive immigration policies in the country. The score reflects its long-standing cooperation with federal immigration agencies and laws that actively discourage sanctuary-style protections. For years, Louisiana has required local governments to assist federal authorities in identifying and detaining undocumented immigrants. This alignment became even stronger in 2024 with the passage of Act 314, which explicitly prohibited sanctuary policies anywhere in the state. The law also established penalties for jurisdictions and officials who fail to cooperate with immigration and customs enforcement. In 2025, lawmakers introduced new measures to expand the scope of enforcement. Among them was a bill proposing criminal penalties of up to 10 years in prison for public officials who obstruct cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. While that bill sparked debate and legal review, its introduction alone sent a strong message about the state's priorities. At the same time, more local sheriffs entered formal cooperation agreements with ICE, and state leaders praised these partnerships as essential for public safety. For undocumented immigrants, access to public assistance in Louisiana is virtually non-existent. Emergency medical care is available regardless of status, but Medicaid, food aid, and most other state programs are restricted to citizens, refugees, and specific categories of legal residents. Legal immigrants typically face the standard 5-year wait before qualifying for Medicaid or the Children's Health Insurance Program. State law also bars undocumented students from receiving in-state tuition, closing a key pathway to affordable higher education. Supporters argue that these measures help prevent the misuse of taxpayer funds, reduce crime, and ensure that benefits go only to those who follow the law. They claim that strict enforcement discourages illegal settlement and keeps communities safer. Critics point out that such policies can erode trust between immigrant communities and law enforcement, making it harder to solve crimes and protect vulnerable residents. Civil rights groups have raised concerns about racial profiling and the potential for wrongful detention under expanded enforcement powers. So far, legal challenges have not overturned the state's core anti-sanctuary provisions, leaving the existing framework intact. For legal immigrants, the environment can feel more secure in the sense that the law clearly distinguishes between those with and without status. However, some worry that the aggressive enforcement climate could lead to mistakes or overreach, affecting even those who are fully documented. How long have you lived in Louisiana, and have you seen a change in how immigration laws are enforced where you live? Share your thoughts in the comments. Number 5. Alabama. Alabama scored 240 in the Immigrant Legal Resource Center ranking, reflecting its long history of strict immigration enforcement. The state became known nationwide in 2011 with the passage of HB 56, one of the most sweeping state-level immigration laws in U.S. history at the time. This legislation sought to make life so difficult for undocumented immigrants that they would choose to leave the state. It required schools to collect data on students' immigration status, allowed police to question the status of anyone they suspected of being in the country illegally, and made it a crime to engage in certain everyday transactions without legal status. Over the years, many of HB 56's harshest provisions were struck down in court, including those affecting school enrollment and some public service access. However, the remaining parts still ensure close cooperation between local law enforcement and federal immigration authorities. Police can check immigration status during lawful stops, and local jails regularly transfer detainees to immigration and ICE when requested. In 2025, Alabama lawmakers pushed to reinforce the state's tough stance. New proposals aim to expand law enforcement's ability to share data with federal agencies and to mandate fingerprint and DNA collection for certain arrests involving foreign-born individuals. Supporters say these measures help identify repeat offenders and strengthen security, while critics warn of privacy violations and the potential for targeting people based on ethnicity or national origin. For undocumented immigrants, access to public assistance in Alabama is extremely limited. Emergency medical care is the only guaranteed service regardless of status. Medicaid, food assistance, and most other benefits are restricted to citizens and specific categories of legal residents. Legal immigrants usually face the federal 5-year waiting period before qualifying for Medicaid or the Children's Health Insurance Program. The state also denies in-state tuition to undocumented students, further limiting educational opportunities. Supporters of Alabama's approach argue that it protects jobs, conserves public resources, and reduces incentives for illegal immigration. Critics, however, point to economic consequences, including labor shortages in industries that historically relied on immigrant workers, and note that fear of enforcement can keep residents from reporting crimes or accessing necessary services. Civil rights advocates continue to challenge aspects of Alabama's enforcement policies, but the core elements have survived legal scrutiny. Alabama's position remains firmly on the side of maximum enforcement, with deep integration into federal systems and little room for policy changes that would ease life for undocumented residents. How long have you lived in Alabama, and have you noticed changes in how immigration laws are enforced in your area? Share your perspective in the comments. Number 4. West Virginia. West Virginia scored 2.40 in the Immigrant Legal Resource Center ranking, placing it among the states with the most restrictive immigration enforcement frameworks. The state's policies center on ensuring that no local jurisdiction can adopt sanctuary measures and that local law enforcement remains fully aligned with federal immigration authorities. West Virginia has not historically had a large immigrant population compared to many other states, but in recent years, lawmakers have taken a preemptive approach to immigration enforcement. Legislation prohibits any city or county from limiting cooperation with federal agencies, effectively banning sanctuary policies. This means that police departments and sheriff's offices are expected to share information with ICE and to honor detainer requests when they arise. In 2025, the state reinforced its stance by approving measures to increase oversight of local agencies' compliance with immigration laws. These steps included mandatory reporting on detainer request responses and the threat of financial penalties for jurisdictions that fail to comply. While some states have resisted federal involvement in local policing, West Virginia has moved in the opposite direction, formalizing its commitment to assisting federal immigration enforcement whenever possible. For undocumented immigrants, public benefits are almost entirely out of reach. Emergency medical care remains available to all, but Medicaid, food assistance, and most state programs are reserved for citizens and qualifying legal residents. Legal immigrants typically face the 5-year waiting period before they can access Medicaid or the Children's Health Insurance Program. The state also does not provide in-state tuition to undocumented students, closing off an important avenue for higher education. Supporters of West Virginia's approach see mandatory cooperation with federal authorities as a deterrent to illegal settlement and a way to ensure that immigration laws are respected. Critics argue that the state's policies are unnecessary, given its relatively small immigrant population and could harm relationships between law enforcement and immigrant communities. Civil rights organizations warn that strict enforcement measures can create fear and discourage crime reporting, even among those with legal status. For legal immigrants, the clear enforcement rules can provide predictability, but the overall environment is still shaped by heightened scrutiny and the expectation of full compliance with federal requests. Some worry that this can lead to mistakes or overreach, affecting individuals who have legal residency but face increased questioning. How long have you lived in West Virginia, and have you seen a difference in how immigration laws are enforced where you live? Share your experiences in the comments. Number 3. Iowa. Iowa scored 2.05 in the Immigrant Legal Resource Center ranking, placing it among the most restrictive states in the nation. The low score reflects recent legislative efforts to criminalize certain immigration-related offenses at the state level and to expand cooperation with federal immigration authorities. In 2024, Iowa lawmakers passed Senate File 2340, a controversial bill that created new state crimes for illegal re-entry and for being in the country without lawful status after certain convictions. The legislation also empowered local police to arrest individuals suspected of these offenses. Supporters claimed the law was necessary to address gaps in federal enforcement and to deter repeat immigration violations. However, the law quickly became the subject of legal challenges. In 2025, a federal court blocked SF 2340 from taking effect, ruling that key provisions conflicted with federal authority over immigration. Despite the injunction, the bill's passage demonstrated Iowa's willingness to push the boundaries of state-level immigration enforcement and to align closely with federal priorities. Even without SF 2340 in force, Iowa maintains strong cooperation with ICE. Local jails frequently honor detainer requests, and law enforcement agencies share data to assist in identifying individuals without legal status. Immigration status checks often follow arrests for unrelated offenses, increasing the risk of detention for undocumented residents. Public benefits for undocumented immigrants in Iowa are very limited. Emergency medical care is available to everyone. But Medicaid, food assistance, and most state programs are restricted to citizens and qualified legal residents. Legal immigrants generally face the federal 5-year waiting period before they can access Medicaid or the Children's Health Insurance Program. State law also denies in-state tuition to undocumented students, limiting access to higher education. Supporters of Iowa's strict approach argue that it protects public resources, enhances safety, and upholds the rule of law. Critics contend that such measures create fear in immigrant communities, reduce cooperation with law enforcement, and risk wrongful detention. They also warn of the economic impact on industries that rely on immigrant labor, particularly in agriculture and food processing. For legal immigrants, Iowa's enforcement-heavy environment can feel both secure and challenging. While some appreciate the clear distinction between legal and illegal status, others worry that aggressive enforcement can result in misunderstandings or unjust scrutiny. Iowa's current position signals a readiness to test legal limits and adopt policies that make life harder for undocumented immigrants, even if those policies face significant court challenges. How long have you lived in Iowa, and have you noticed changes in how immigration laws are enforced where you live? Share your experiences in the comments. Number 2. Texas. Texas scored 1.95 in the Immigrant Legal Resource Center ranking, placing it among the most restrictive states in the nation. This low score reflects years of legislative and executive measures aimed at deterring illegal immigration, combined with a willingness to challenge federal authority when leaders believe Washington is not doing enough. The state has built a reputation for aggressive border enforcement, strict cooperation with federal agencies, and policies that make life more difficult for undocumented residents. In 2023, lawmakers passed Senate Bill 4, a sweeping measure that made illegal entry from Mexico a state crime and authorized state and local officers to arrest and remove individuals suspected of crossing unlawfully. Judges could order them returned to border crossings, and prosecutions would take place in state courts. Supporters claimed the law addressed rising migrant encounters along the Rio Grande and filled a gap left by federal enforcement. Opponents quickly brought SB 4 to court, arguing it conflicted with federal control over immigration and risked racial profiling. In early 2025, a federal appeals court temporarily blocked key provisions, but state officials signaled they would continue pushing for its enforcement. This legal clash is only the latest in a long history of disputes between Texas and the federal government over immigration authority. Even without SB 4 in effect, Texas operates an expansive enforcement network. Through Operation Lone Star, the state deploys troopers, National Guard units, and local sheriffs to border areas, builds barriers, and uses river buoys and razor wire to deter crossings. Local jails regularly honor immigration and customs enforcement detainer requests, and immigration status checks often follow arrests for unrelated offenses, raising detention risks for undocumented residents. Public benefits for undocumented immigrants in Texas are very limited. Emergency medical care is available to all, but Medicaid, food assistance, and most other state programs are restricted to citizens and qualified legal residents. In-state tuition and state financial aid are blocked unless strict residency and graduation requirements are met. And even then, access to aid is often limited. Supporters argue these measures protect public resources, enhance safety, and reduce the burden on border communities. Critics counter that they create fear in immigrant neighborhoods, discourage cooperation with law enforcement, and harm industries such as agriculture, construction, and hospitality that rely on immigrant labor. For legal immigrants, Texas offers economic opportunity alongside a high enforcement environment where misunderstandings can lead to scrutiny or wrongful detention. Texas's current position shows a determination to defend its policies in court and to act independently whenever state leaders believe federal efforts fall short. How do you feel about Texas's immigration policies? Have you noticed changes in enforcement where you live? Share your thoughts in the comments. Now it's time to find out the correct answer to the quiz. What is the name of the new toughest prison for illegal migrants? A. San Quentin. B. Alligator Alcatraz. C. Angola Prison. D. Attica. The correct answer is B. Alligator Alcatraz. Number 1. Florida. Florida scored 1.95 in the Immigrant Legal Resource Center ranking, placing it among the most restrictive states in the United States. The low score reflects an aggressive state-level stance on immigration enforcement, where lawmakers and the governor have consistently pushed policies designed to deter illegal immigration and limit access to public benefits. Florida has been especially proactive in creating its own enforcement tools, often going further than federal requirements. One of the most symbolic recent steps was the opening of a controversial detention facility in the Everglades, quickly nicknamed Alligator Alcatraz. Built in a remote location surrounded by swamps and wildlife, this high-security center was designed to hold large numbers of individuals accused of entering the country illegally. State officials presented it as a necessary measure to relieve pressure on federal detention capacity and to send a clear message about Florida's zero-tolerance approach. Critics argue that the location, harsh conditions, and rapid construction reflect a punitive rather than practical solution. But for supporters, it has become a visible sign of the state's determination to act. Florida's laws also heavily restrict access to benefits for undocumented residents. Emergency medical treatment is available to everyone, but programs like Medicaid, food assistance, and most state aid are reserved for citizens and certain legal residents. State law denies in-state tuition to undocumented students, making higher education more expensive and difficult to access. Employers face strict penalties for hiring workers without legal status, and mandatory e-verify checks are increasingly enforced across industries. Cooperation with immigration and customs enforcement is extensive. Local law enforcement agencies frequently honor detainer requests and share data to help identify those without legal status. Immigration checks can follow arrests for unrelated offenses, increasing the risk of detention even for minor infractions. Supporters of Florida's approach say it protects public resources, upholds the rule of law, and discourages illegal entry into the state. Critics warn that such measures create fear in immigrant communities, reduce trust in law enforcement, and can harm sectors like agriculture, tourism, and construction that depend on immigrant labor. For legal immigrants, Florida offers opportunity, but also operates within a climate of strict enforcement that can lead to heightened scrutiny. The combination of tough laws, visible enforcement actions, and facilities like Alligator Alcatraz signals that Florida intends to remain at the forefront of restrictive immigration policy, regardless of court challenges or public criticism. How do you feel about Florida's immigration policies? Have you seen changes in enforcement where you live? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for exploring the hidden corners of the USA with us. Click on the video you see on the screen to check out other hidden discoveries on our channel.